Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Let's take you through the papers. And joining us this morning is the General Managing Director, Purple Prime Group, Dr. Adebowale Johnson. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good
and Happy
morning.
New Year.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Oh, I can see you're wearing your poppy already. We're counting down to January 15th.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, now let's go through the papers and see what the front pages are saying. We begin with our first paper, the Leadership newspaper. On the front page of the Leadership newspaper, we see here, New year, governors renew commitment to good governance, roll out plans, promise better deal. You hold the power to drive economic growth, says President Tinubu. Kano rejects tax reform bills. Anthony Joshua eyes Tyson Fury clash in 2025. Oh, are we going there again? Okay. Remi Tinubu unveils first baby of the year. Bauchi governor's stepmother dies at 120. Tariff hikes, competition, others may define ICT sector in 2025. We can't defeat terrorism without citizen support, Ribadu says. Wike outlines FCT achievements, 2025 plans. And finally, fake video, Mahdi Shehu remanded in prison. Huh? All right, that's all on the Leadership newspaper. Let's go to this Nigeria.
On this Nigeria this morning, we have here local government autonomy. We have the Punch on screen. Okay, let's start with the Punch then. NNPCL may cut crude supply to Dangote plant. Move part of federal government's adjustment of Naira for crude initiative after renovation of Warri and Port Harcourt refineries. Shetima, governor's wives welcome New Year babies. And also this morning, 133 women and girls killed in 2024 gender-related violence, says a report. Top of the screen there, Lakurawa, Nigeria, Niger joint operations continue amid diplomatic row. Tinubu's tax reform will destroy Nigeria's unity, says Kano State Governor. And also food focus on security, strengthen Naira, experts tell presidency, or the president. Naira defies CBN reforms, tumbled 41% in 2024. That's also on the Punch newspapers this morning. Those are the major stories that we can take on the Punch.
All right, now let's go to this Nigerian newspaper. On the front page of this Nigeria, local government autonomy, no need for a fight. Tinubu tells governors, says nobody wants to take them, that is the local governments, away from you. But we need collaboration. Call states helmsmen, critical link to nation's prosperity and growth. Lord's National Assembly on support for administration. Projects security top our 2025 agenda. All right, project security top our 2025 agenda, says FCT Minister Wike, who lumps destroy Anambra Catholic Church with explosive on New Year's Day. That's really sad. Bishop urges Southeast governors to stop killings, kidnapping, ravaging zone. Telco subscribers reject alleged tariff hike. We keep going back and forth on this. But let's go to our final paper for this morning.
All right, on the Daily Trust newspapers, next it says here, withdraw tax reform bills. NLC, Kano government tells Tinubu. Colleges join ASU in warning against suffocating TET Fund and Naseni. President's New Year speech not in tandem with reality, says PDP and TUC. Also, experts expect more dividends of democracy this year. I'm not sure exactly what that means. This is dividends of democracy talk. I really don't know what it means. Flooding, inflation, others defined a Greek sector in 2024. Autonomy, no plans to hijack local governments from you, Tinubu tells governors. And also 2025 budget for government to spend 60 billion naira on pupils feeding. I think we can stop here and just get straight into with our guests this morning. I think we should start with the reactions that are still pouring into the tax reform bill. The Kano State Governor, of course, is in the news. Another state governor, I believe, yesterday also went viral, for his views on the tax reform bill. The NLC also is having their tantrums. They are saying that they have not been included in the conversations. They don't have any problem with the tax reform. They think it's inclusive, it's progressive, and all of that, but they just, have not been included in the conversation. So, well, they want it withdrawn as well. So let's get your thoughts, on the bill.
Okay, so first of all, I'll address the NLC, stuff. I mean, it's just very childish to say that such a national reform should be withdrawn because NLC wasn't carried along. I mean that's very baseless. I don't think. I think NLC just wants to be relevant again by just coming to the news. I don't think it's anything for anybody to be worried about. This is a tax reform, and the government should present to all stakeholders. ask for it to be removed or stopped because you weren't carried along in the drafting. I mean, that's very baseless. Coming to all the other governors, I mean, it's okay that the northern governors are, agitating against it. But I would ask them, and, I would speak to their, conscience, and, of course, ask them to look in-depth into the reforms and ask the critical questions by punching the numbers. I mean, it just takes very little effort in punching the numbers and seeing what this reform is all about before you then come out to say, we don't want it. I mean, whatever the allegation is, I don't think it's going to cost the harm that they are seeking for, they are mentioning, but rather it's actually going to improve the lives of the real people, the real Nigerians, where the real population really is. I mean, if you can take care of that, and I've seen other reforms globally that talks about, taking away, taxation. I mean, even at a national level. Dubai, it's an example. And they're thriving even without all of the unnecessary taxes and all of that. So that would be my own position to that conversation.
Yeah, there's many things. I did listen to an X space where Taiwo Oyedele was, speaking. He spoke extensively on the tax bill and highlighted some of the really, really, interesting aspects of it, that would be beneficial for not just the Nigerian government, but for the Nigerian people as well, and some of the exemptions that you mentioned on, certain food items, on certain income brackets, that wouldn't also be taxed. So it's worrisome because I've seen that a lot of people have ignored all those things and just focused on certain, aspects of it that I also believe that they haven't understood well enough.
Absolutely.
But maybe politics.
I mean, maybe the NLC now, in response to the NLC, we had the guests join us earlier, and yes, they've been asking them to drop the bills, that they were not carried along, but from his explanation, he says that if the NLC was carried along, it will be able to help with the implementation because they represent the people, even the northern leaders, who feel that this will not benefit them. So that the NLC is a national body that represents all the, geopolitical zones. So if the northern leaders say that they are displeased by this, they also represent them and should be able to speak up for them. So they're having I think a stakeholders meeting in Ibadan in January where they say they expect everyone to come together. Do you have much expectations? Do you think that that's the game changer? Because we've been on this tax reform bills conversation for a while. Do you think that'll be a game changer in the conversation?
I mean, the question that I have for NLC is, have they really been honest enough with Nigerians and with the Nigerian workers? Because we've seen them flip-flopping. We've seen the fact that they say something with one side of the mouth and then they do the other. So, are we certain that they're actually really doing this for the benefit of the people, or they just, just wants to be relevant, just wants to sound like they're smart? I mean, we should, as Nigerians and as a people, we should learn to look at things objectively. And I mean, because there's a panel or an expert has drafted something and has presented it, and the stakeholder engagement is still ongoing. There's still conversations at various levels. So engage the man rather than saying you should drop it because you weren't in the drafting. You're not a tax expert.
All right.
So that's my own.
And I think they've also spoken with, and this is not denying the NLC its right to want to feel included. I understand it, but the tax experts have spoken with the National Assembly. They've spoken with I think they had a governors. They have conversations with governors either as a group or individually. So it's not like they're just carrying the tax bill by themselves. I remember Taiwo Oyedele said that he spoke with the Lagos state government because he felt the narrative was that Lagos was going to be greatly affected negatively, but they had conversations with Lagos, and Lagos was all for it, because they understood the value that it's also going to bring. So, well, there is that.
All right, let's move on now to the president's New Year's speech. Different reactions. He highlighted the struggles and the progresses we've made. He talked about National Youth Confirm, National Values Charter, National Credit Guarantee Company, which, we don't know how that will play out. I'd hope that our guests will speak to that. The guest we had, Jide Benson, had said that the most important one for him was the National Youth Confab, which should be unveiled or rolled out in Q1 2025. But let's get your thoughts on the speech. I think the question I wanted to ask Jide Benson, which unfortunately we didn't have time to ask, I'm glad you're here, is, are there areas or specific things you think the president should have spoken to that he didn't speak to? For example, there are people who criticized the fact that the president didn't speak to the number of people that were slaughtered, you know, on New Year's, and just saying that people lost their lives, and, you know, if these people, unfortunately, I mean, these were not being represented in the speech. They argued that the speech was recorded and that it didn't show empathy, it wasn't filmed in real time. So are there areas or things that you think the president should have spoken about that were not included in that speech?
So on that conversation, I would say that, yes, it's almost impossible for the president to have been broadcasting live that speech. I mean, I'm not part of the team, so I wouldn't know, but clearly you and I can see that it wasn't a live broadcast. I mean, it's obvious. So events that are happening at the same time while the recording had happened, even if it was just 30 minutes before, there's no way we'll speak to it because he didn't know it was going to happen. So we could give that to him by saying we should not expect that national speeches like that should always be, you know, done live. And while he's being, even if it's going on live, I mean, there's so much that, you know, he can hear, you know, while he's speaking in the studio. I mean, while we're here in the studio, if anything happens outside, we'll barely know it until maybe 5, you know, minutes or 2 or
But
3
even
minutes
if
after.
not
So
immediately, I mean, the people whose lives had been lost, for example, in the previous year, because there's a lot of them.
So, yes.
Those who were killed by bandits, those who were killed by the army, mistakenly, especially the most recent one, you know, where they had killed a number, I think about 10 people had been reported dead because of conversations about them. Yeah, you know, a mistake. I think that's what we'll call it. Even though we had reports that the army had said that, oh, that they were mixed up with the Lakurawa
which is also
terrorists.
very possible, yes. So for me, I agree with you and with everyone who may say that the president's speech didn't address some things. I mean, he is human, and of course, maybe in the drafting and the people who work with him had looked at the sensitivity of some of those statements and have said, hey, don't talk about this. Since this is, you know, we're talking hope here, we're trying to give hope to Nigerians. So don't let's say anything that sounds negative or that could be emotional. So if we want to talk about the numbers, oh, 10 people died, 100 people died, 200 people died, the question is, what about the families of those who lost people? I mean, I was somewhere in a public space and conversations happened and something was said that triggered me, and I literally broke down. So sometimes, you know, some of these things, because it will be forever. So there's that, and I'm not a PR expert, so there's that bit of some people will be able to watch it and say, hey, you know, the president said something that was, you know, quite emotional. Some other people will take it wrongly, and it may just be something that will be kept, you know, for them for the future. So I would say that, yes, there's a possibility that some things were missed out, I mean, around things like that, but I think the president may have just decided to focus on giving hope and saying things that are more positive in his, you know, in his...
Yeah, I mean, Mr. President has handlers, you know, so they decide, you know, a reasonable percentage of, you know, what he says in his speeches. You know, there's script writers, there's speech writers, and all of that. And you know, I don't know how much influence he has in some of all those decisions. Yes, will it be important that he was more empathetic, you know, at that time? Yes, absolutely. And I feel like these are some of the things that they might be getting wrong. I'm not sure why they are getting it wrong. If it is because generally they don't necessarily feel, you know, that much value or relevance to the average Nigerian, and so they just those things just skip their minds. Because in Seoul, in South Korea, I did comment on this on X yesterday, that there was because of the plane crash. The plane crash. There was in their crossover into the new year. I think they observed a moment of silence. So, but there wasn't any, you know, extremely loud, you know, celebration. So even if there was that part where they recognized those who had passed a couple of days earlier, because, and I said it, that's how a country expresses value for life and the average citizen. You know, you don't miss out on those things. So if Mr. President and, you know, and the scriptwriters, the handlers decided it wasn't important, there's many questions to ask there.
Yeah, same thing happened in Senegal when there was a, you know, I think there was a bus crash that led to deaths. Senegal declared day of mourning.
I would say that I didn't understand why some state had celebrations.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
Clearly, I mean, with the way Nigeria is and with, you know, the sufferings of people, I didn't see the need for the elaborate celebrations and the countdown and monies that were spent. I mean, clearly, Lagos hosted all the big artists. I mean, are you saying that all of those guys came on pro bono?
Well, Burna Boy did say that it was pro bono because, you know, when people were reacting to him coming out of the stage, he put post on the story saying that it was a free show. So maybe they did that to just find a way to inspire hope in the hearts of people, because it's really been a sad season.
That would be nice for the artists to do that on pro bono. I mean, all of them.
I mean, I can't speak for all of them. I'm just saying
I'm also saying that it would be nice if they all did it that way. But of course, monies were spent on, you know, putting together everything. I mean, that volume of money, I'm sure it's not 10 million naira, it's not 100 million naira that we'll talk about in renting equipment and the logistics and all of that. So I would have thought that such kind of, you know, funding, such kind of, you know, huge capital could have been put into things that are more impactful for Nigerians rather than the entire celebration and all of that.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. Let's also talk about other things this morning. On the Punch, it says Withdrawal, Nigeria, Niger, joint operations continue amid diplomatic role. So let's talk about the diplomatic role. Niger, of course, has its accusations. Nigerian government initially was saying, well, you need to prove it. You know, there's no military base here by the French government, this and that. We have no, you know, agreements with the French government and somewhat. So, but what are your thoughts with the way that it is handled and with the accusations as well?
The matter of security is quite a sensitive one. And I am always very careful to speak about it, you know, on public platforms, and not just only on TV, but even if we meet in public space, I wouldn't talk about security in public because of the sensitivity. I mean, there's a lot of allegations flying up and down. The most important thing is that time will tell who is telling the truth. I mean, if Nigeria is actually telling the truth, or it is the Niger government that is actually, you know, speaking the truth to us. So we would know in the matter of days who is actually truthful about the matter. I mean, the nations wouldn't necessarily continue to fight themselves. I know that most of the people we call Nigerians are actually also Nigerians. I mean, the northern Nigeria is a single sort of mass of land, whether you call it Castina, Zamfara, and all those regions. They're as good as you're from Niger, because they have families. I mean, it's the same families that spread across the borderline. And if you also look at Africa, Africa is one single line that, you know, the colonial masters have come to create boundaries for us and broke us, you know, into different tribes and regions and stuff like that. So I think the first thing we need to look at when it comes to security of Africa is to look inwards. And African leaders must talk to themselves the truth and speak the truth to themselves and not come to the public, you know, place putting allegations forward. And if anybody hears anything, I mean, we would continue to have the puppet masters pull the strings if we're not careful, you know. So that's why I said that it's a sensitive conversation that I don't like to.
There will need to be some level of self-sufficiency before they're able to then come together and talk to themselves and, you know, at least become more united. As long as they're still very dependent on the West and Europe and many other places in the world, it's difficult. Your quick reactions, did you?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the local government autonomy. Remember
fantastic.
the Supreme Court landmark case in July 2024 that granted the 774 local governments financial autonomy. It seems that the body language of the governors, they don't seem very, of course, obviously not pleased with it. But it also seems that the president is trying to, you know, be diplomatic. See the front page of this Nigerian newspaper. It says, no need for a fight, Tinubu tells government. Says nobody wants to take them, that is the local government, away from you, but we need collaboration. We see that there. We also see that on the Daily Trust, where he says, no plan to hijack local governments from you. I did not in some ways separate, at least in the financial autonomy, based off the court's judgment. Yeah,
I mean, the thing is that we've been too used to the strategy of being the executive governor of a state and literally owning the state. You know, I mean, a lot of states have used the federal allocation that includes the local government allocation into their expenditure on a monthly basis or a year-on-year basis. Therefore, I know some states have literally borrowed money on that conversation, on that sort of pot of funds. So now taking that autonomy away, taking that funding away from their hand to go directly to the local government chairman is going to be a bit of a struggle for them to understand how they will now restructure their finances. But this is the best thing that can happen to Nigeria. I mean, I'm privy to some information at the level of the local government, and there are lots of stuff that are going to happen very quickly this year. And I support Mr. President for this. I mean, if out of every other thing, I mean, this is one thing that I'm proud of that Mr. President did for us as Nigerians. The moment we're able to have the local government chairman have their autonomy and have their funding to really bring that, even if it is 100 million that comes to a local government monthly, and we have a smart local government chairman, that local government will strive. I mean, that the impact will be felt.
I think it's important to also mention, you know, that along with the fact that, you know, for the longest time, local governments have really not had the autonomy that they should have. You know, on paper they have it, but in reality they don't. In what's it called now? In River State, the APP won.
All the
local government. Pretty much same thing in Imo. You know, it's pretty common that you find that the governor dictates who becomes local government.
Absolutely, yes.
So it's still going to be a struggle to completely give local governments that autonomy. I think in 2018 or 2019, Civic Hive did something where you can find out how much your local government gets every month. You text your certain local government name to a certain number, and it shows you 150 million, 200 million every month. At the end of January, you text it, they'll show you. But I don't know that it is going to be easy to completely break that relationship between the state government and the local government with the power that they have as state government.
It won't happen immediately. And I'm sure that's why the governors are actually a bit agitated. But some people will revolt immediately. Some will not. Some will still be loyal because they probably never saw themselves being anything in the first place. But a governor made them the local government chairman. So they will still be loyal. But some who have ambition will probably say, you know what, this is my time. I need to make impact because after local government, I want to go further. I mean, I know a particular local government chairman currently in Niger State who left House of Assembly to be local government chairman. Because he doesn't see himself much of a lawmaker, but I would rather leave the assembly, I would rather make more impact by coming to be the local government chairman. I mean, so there are many more of such that will happen. And young people like you and I'm not that young anyway, but young people like you and I will probably decide that, okay, you know what, next election I'm going for local government. Because now I know that I can really make impact. I mean, people have always seen that as, oh, that's just a seat for the messengers of the governor. But now people will aspire because now they know that they will be able to make impact in their local government. Yes, it won't be immediate, but, for me, I would advise, and I'll speak to all the excellencies, the 37 of them, of course, which include His Excellency, former governor of River State, Nyesom Wike, that we need to allow the local government chairman do the work that they are meant to do and let them focus on local development. I mean, there's a lot of infrastructure deficits at the local government level.
That should be responsibility of the local governments,
I mean, basic education in Nigeria is at the local level. You need to go to all the primary schools and see the level of, is appalling. A particular state, I'm not sure whether I mentioned it on this platform, as of June, had 400 schools with 400 teachers. Of course, you know what that means now. 400 schools with 400 teachers.
So one teacher to one school.
To a school.
That's appalling.
That's an entire state. So you can imagine what is going on, across the country. Basic education, and they will keep saying that our children are not passing WAEC, they're not, when the foundation is really bad, because the local government chairman who is supposed to handle that basic education, of course, through Superb and other entities, don't have the capacity to because it's still the state governor. And the state governor has so much more than he can handle, on a day-to-day basis. So
I'd hope that would have had enough time to talk a little bit about the new refineries. NNPCL may cause crude supply to Dangote plant, according to the Punch newspaper. Warri has joined the League of Working Refineries.
Yes,
Port
yes.
Harcourt, we hear the new one will almost be completed. We're looking on to Kaduna. So, I mean, if you can, in 30 seconds, just share your quick thoughts.
I mean, it's good. It's a step in the right direction. We just need to continue to support. I mean, I know that some days ago, last year, a whole year ago, as we said at the beginning of the show, that the last time we saw was a whole year ago. We were discussing with some experts who are trying to help Nigeria to get many more refineries up and running, and we just need to continue in that part and make sure that we support what is going on globally. And the NNPC needs to stop the politics, and move Nigeria forward.
All right. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you for
Happy
having
New
me.
Year. We wish you the absolute best of 2025.
you.
And we hope to see you more often. Of course, as a guest, either for the newspapers or talking about Nigeria's major stories. Maybe at the Youth Confab.
Yes, I said something about the Youth Confab. I think the last time we spoke here. So I hope that we do it the right way rather than another.
We'll see. We'll see.
Time
We'll be
will
here to
tell.
talk about it.